Okay, so this last video is going to be, hopefully it'll present right here. Yes, it did. Okay, so this last video is going to be about what your informative speech can be about. So what can it look like? So again, like I said, your informative speech can be about anything as long as it's not going back steps into an introductory speech. It's not about you. And you're not going forward into persuasive speeches where you're starting to try to convince us that something is good or bad, right or wrong. You're not trying to change our beliefs. You're not trying to change our behavior in any way. So your informative speech, whatever topic you choose a topic that is intellectually stimulating, entertaining, outside of the box, and presented in a way that is new to us. So when you choose that topic, you can be two different ways. It can be a speech of explanation. So who, what, why, where, or it can be a speech of demonstration where you're answering the question of how. Okay. Depending on which type of speech you choose, which is again up to you and where you want to go with it, what do you want your audience to get out of it is going to determine what type of organizational pattern you can choose. So you can choose a topical order pattern, which is the pattern that you did for your introductory speech. You have a thesis, you have two main ideas, you're breaking those main ideas into subpoints. Time order is another version of topical order, but the main ideas are presented in a chronological sequence. Okay, you'll also see this organizational pattern referred to as chronological order. So if you're doing a how-to speech, you're typically going to use time order, sometimes in combination with the topical order, because when you're doing a how-to speech, your presentation should follow a sequence of steps, okay, or a sequence of events. If you're doing something about an event, say Woodstock, you're going to use time order because it goes in a specific order. Cause and effect. Sometimes this can be difficult not to cross the line into being persuasive because usually when you're following, here's the causes of something, here's the effects of that, well, here's the solution on how to fix it. And you don't want to do that because once you start to provide the solution, you're asking for your audience to create a behavioral change or make a behavioral change. And you don't want to do that because that is persuasive speaking. So cause and effect, you're going to trace the causes. You're going to trace the effects. So typically if you're doing a speech about, say, global warming, or you're doing a speech about the progression of a disease, you're going to use cause and effect. Pro-con is also an organizational pattern that you can use. It's another variation of topical order because it's breaking it into subpoints. But pro-con is another one where it can be difficult not to cross the line into persuasive speaking because pro-con can open us up for a lot of chances to show our own biases. So pro-con, you want to make sure that you're even throughout those 6 to 8 minutes. And what that means is if you present 3 pros, you have to present 3 cons. If you talk for 3 minutes in pros, you need to talk for about 3 minutes in cons. If you present academic scholarly research in pros, you need to do the same in cons, because if you don't, if you talk more about pros and less about cons, you're creating a bias. If you present academic scholarly research in pros, but then in cons you show me some vlogs or blogs, which would be horrible anyway, please don't, you're creating a bias in your research. If you give 3 pros and only 2 cons, well, obviously you're creating a bias. So you need to be really equal and even in your treatment of both pros and cons. The idea of pro-con pattern is to present enough information to let your audience make its own educated decision and not sway them in any way. So you need to leave your own personal opinion out of it, obviously. Okay. So what I want to do is show you where those patterns are on Eagle. So if we go back to your Eagle homepage, within the assignment, you're going to find those patterns. And I'm going to scroll to the middle before I go over the actual assignment with you, just to show you. So here are the patterns right here, and here are the hyperlinks, and it'll take you to the Google Doc. So if you want to use topical order pattern, which is the pattern we used for our last speech, you're comfortable with that, that's what you want to do, you go for it. Click the pattern. It'll bring you to Google Docs. And again, you'll see the introductory speech in there. Don't worry about what the content says. It's just more so the format, the setup. You delete my information, you plug your information into it. Okay, if you want to use chronological order, here's an empty pattern for you. Okay, you fill in the information. Okay, don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. It is here for you. Okay, so that's where you're going to go ahead and you're going to find those patterns. Okay. What I'm going to do next, since I'm right here on the page, is I'm going to go over the assignment with you. Since I've spent a lot of time talking about it, I want to make sure you understand specifics. So with all the information that we went over in lecture, I want you to apply it to this informative speech assignment. It's worth 100 points this time because there's more required of you. So you will be able to effectively organize your informative speech in an introduction, body, and conclusion. So that should not be new because all speeches are going to have an intro, body, and conclusion, just like your introductory speech did. You will be able to integrate outside resources. So you're going to need 5 oral citations from 5 different sources. And the reason that it is necessary that you use 5 different sources is because if you limit your sources, you're limiting the credibility of yourself as a speaker, but also limiting the credibility of your topic. So in order to legitimize your credibility of yourself and your content, you need to diversify your sources. If you want to quote from the same source twice, that's fine, but you still need to find a 6th source. So always consider, really this is kind of a college standard, when a professor says I need 5, that's always the minimum. Feel free to go above and beyond that, but also keep in mind that you want to have a lot of original thought in your speech, just as if you're writing a paper. You don't want to have somebody else's words or paraphrased ideas for your entire assignment because, well, then we're running into some issues. Okay, so 5 oral citations from 5 different sources. You'll be able to identify an informative speech from other forms of public presentation. So this is just what I talked about earlier about not going back in terms of you're not giving an introductory speech anymore. It's not about you, and you're not giving a persuasive speech. You're not here to change my mind or my behaviors in any way. You will demonstrate progress of learned verbal skills. So think back, you need to be descriptive. You want to make sure you're adding emphasis. So think about adding in repetition. You want to make sure that you're being clear with your definitions. You're not using any jargon. You want to make sure that you understand that adding in definitions is beneficial for your audience, for those that are that can learn that way. You also want to make sure that you understand the connotative meaning behind words. Okay, so think about your learned verbal skills that you want to add in, and also demonstrate progress of learned nonverbal. So you want to think about, again, I would love it if you did some sort of walking transitions, but again, it's also important to remember gestures, motivated movements. Think about what you're doing with your hands. Think about what you're doing with your face. Facial expressions are important. Eye contact is important. We can't be reading from a screen. We can't be reading from a note card. Reading is not presenting. Reading is reading. You give me your note cards, I can get up in front of a camera and read it. Your job is to apply presentational skills, and that requires practice. So again, there's that P word, practice before you get up to present. Specific requirements, the speech is about anything that you want. An object, process, event, or concept that you find interesting. You're going to have an intro, body, and conclusion, and here are the patterns that you can use. Please do not go, oh, look, the book told me I could use these patterns. No. Use the patterns that I'm talking about here in the assignment, and then use the templates that I'm providing for you. Make your life simple. Okay? The above patterns are your only options. Again, download it into Google Docs. You're going to need at least 3 visual aids. Visual aids need to be PowerPoint or actual tangible objects. You must be able to project the visual aid to me when recording your speeches. Again, I have provided a link back to the welcome letter that talks about those directions. Again, I also provide them here. I try to make it really simple for you guys. I provide all the hyperlinks. I'm not trying to send you on a scavenger hunt. I try to send you back to where the information is. It's just your job to go back and do it and to read all the information and the videos that I'm providing. So please, please, please do so. Handouts do not count as visual aids. They're distracting. We talked about that. Visual aids do not count as part of your 5 pieces of research. We already talked about that. If you use a PowerPoint to show your visual aids, create blank slides. That's that sandwich method we talked about. Additionally, what am I saying here? This allows for limited distraction using the sandwich aid or the sandwich method. And additionally, use the video. I'm going to give you a link to the video that is also posted in week 6. So it's the video that I asked you to talk about your 5 takeaways from, which is also an important part of the visual aid content in this course. So visual aid slides should consist of limited text. Use of pictures are necessary, charts, graphs, etc. to aid memory retention. So if we have a slide that has a lot of text on it, we're just going to end up reading it, and that video talks about why it's important to have limited text. We're not going to tie memory aid to text. Your outline and works cited are due on the day that you speak. This should not be new. You did the same thing for your introductory speech. You need to have a minimum of 5 sources cited in the content of your speech. Again, use that oral citation guide that is available for you in week 2, I believe, possibly week 3. I can also provide the link, but again, just go back to the previous week and grab it. Remember not only to orally cite these in your presentation, but also bold these in your outline. It's one of the requirements of the outline that you put those oral citations in bold. Remember, the credibility of your sources impacts your own credibility, which is part of your grade. So use magazines, books, newspaper, journals. If the source is not well known, you must establish the credibility of the source. Choose wisely when you choose your internet sources. So again, if you need to, go back and refresh your memory about what it means to evaluate sources using the CRAFT method, which is what that talked about. So you're going to talk about the credibility, the authority, the timeliness of the source to make sure it's the most credible that you can provide your audience and do yourself justice as a speaker. Make sure to evenly support your speech. What that means is you don't want to lump all your sources into main point 1. You want to make sure that you are providing equal amount of research in main point 2. You want to make sure that it's evenly supported. I guess there's not a better way to say that, but to evenly support your speech. Employ extemporaneous method of delivery, which means you're conversational, you're organized, it's not memorized, and you're not reading. Memorizing your speech can cause anxiety to skyrocket, because if we mess up and we forget, that can cause a little bit of anxiety to start to boil. So we want to just make sure that we're practiced. Our note cards are our outline, and we're speaking from our outline, and then we're filling in what is not there in a extemporaneous, impromptu, organized sort of fashion. Okay, remember that you can use 2 5x8 note cards. You are not reading from your computer screen. If you're reading, I'm going to dock you points, and I can tell when you are reading from a computer screen. Practice in order to meet 6 to 8 minutes. Submit an unlisted YouTube video. Again, here's a link to the directions. There's multiple directions everywhere. If you want to use a screencast will upload right to YouTube. If you want to record this from your computer, just make sure you upload it to YouTube. You do exactly what you did last time. I will only take URLs. I'm not taking any sort of document that I have to download, because I have to download this to my personal computer. I'm downloading it to a Rock Valley computer. I simply do not have the space for your files to take up my computer, which is why I'm asking for a URL. Also, I say this in the syllabus and the welcome letter that you can go back and double check. We'll just pop back to it since we're talking about it right now to refresh our memory. Where is it? Professional dress. Now you need to be in professional attire, or for your informative speech, you can dress for your topic. So let's talk about professional dress. Professional code needs to be met. If it's not, you're going to be deducted 10 points. Dressing up is really not that bad. You do not have to get in a suit and tie, but just dress like you're going for a job interview. Here's a dress code if you need to check it out. For informative speaking, I always allow you to dress for your topic. So what does that mean? If you don't want to do professional dress, you can dress for your topic in a way that is not distracting. So, for example, if I am giving a speech about, what is a speech I could give an example about? Let's say I'm giving a speech about Wrigley Stadium, ballpark. You can wear a Wrigley shirt, okay, with a nice pair of pants. Okay. Or if you are giving a speech about how to do CPR or how to survive the zombie apocalypse, you can wear your EMT uniform or your survival of the fittest uniform with your backpack full of your survival needs. Okay. So you can be creative, but don't be distracting. Okay, I had a student one time ask me, they were talking about how to, something about the circus. I can't remember. Something about history of the circus. And they wanted to come dressed as a clown. And I actually had to have that conversation with that student of whether they thought that was a good idea or not. Did it fit their topic? Sure did. Was it distracting? Yes. Okay, so just use your head. Use your head. Okay, don't be distracting. But this is back in the welcome letter, so it's reminding you that you need to have professional dress. Here's the code, dress code. Make sure that you're standing if able-bodied to record your presentations because this allows for a more realistic experience. This shouldn't be new to you. This should just be a reminder. You hopefully did this for your introductory speeches. And again, if you can add in those walking transitions, all the better for you. This is what the original reason I was coming back to the welcome letters to remind you, no editing your speeches. Editing videos is not realistic to the public speaking experience. If this was a business course or a media professional course or something where you were, that was part of the assignment to provide me some sort of presentational business presentation where it was pre-edited, then that, yeah, say edit away. But this is not supposed to be that. I know we're in a pandemic and it's weird that you're recording and you're sending these videos in, but this is still supposed to be realistic to an audience being there even though they're not. And if an audience was there, you would not be editing your speeches and cutting it down and reframing and doing it. It's so, just don't do it. If I see editing, I'm going to ask you to send it back and re-record it, and I will grade it once I see no edits. Okay? So, jump off my soapbox here. Don't edit your speeches. And then again, here's the directions for you for projecting the visual aid. So you'll get this link back to the welcome letter, which is an extension of your syllabus in a couple different places in the informative lecture. That's not what I was looking for. Yeah, so the next video that I'm going to talk about is to show you where the examples are and go over a really great student example, and talk about, why it meets the needs of being a really great informative example. So stay tuned for that one. And that, I believe, will be my last video pertaining to the informative lecture, the informative assignment. The other videos coming up, you'll see in the weeks coming up. All right, everybody, have a good one.